I think some people might take issue with what I'm about to say. But in this small area, okay, uh, I find Elon Musk interesting. Other areas, maybe not so much. But someone like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, it's crazy. 400 billion, like $400 billion.
Hello, everyone. I am Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspired podcast. Welcome back to a new episode. My guest today is Kute Blackson. Kute, thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start with a very easy question. Why are the billionaires coming to you for advice?
I don't know if that's an easy question, but I'll answer it the best that I can. I would say many times people achieve great success in the world. They've achieved everything that they wanted to achieve. Sometimes achieving everything that you wanted to achieve ends up being a curse. Because when you achieve the thing that you wanted to achieve, and then you're left with the feeling that the thing that you thought was going to make you happy still doesn't fulfill you, then you're really screwed. Because when you were in the pursuit of the goal, of the billion, of the money, of the whatever, you always had a hope of attaining and achieving. And that hope drove you. That hope gave you hope. That hope moved you forward and motivated you. But when you achieved it, and then maybe you're in a place of, is this it? Or you reach a point of dissatisfaction, then life can start feeling empty. And what I found is many times the goals and the dreams that we set for ourselves are sometimes coming from a place of lack, a place of inadequacy, a place of pain. So when you achieve those goals, what you were really seeking was not even a thing. You thought you were seeking that, but what you were really seeking was some kind of security, validation, peace, love, worthiness, right? And so nothing outside of you can fulfill you truly if you don't feel fulfilled within yourself. And so many times billionaires end up coming to me, or people that have achieved a lot materially, because they end up coming and saying, I have everything. I have every reason to be happy. I have a jet. I have a car. I have, I can go anywhere, buy anything. And I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel happy. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Making another 100 million or 10 million or million is just not fulfilling anymore. There has to be more than this. And so I think by the time they get to me, they're questioning and they're seeking something beyond what they've achieved and attained. You see, part of the problem or challenge is in our culture, we have very much have a object subject object relationship with life and success and happiness. In other words, we mistakenly believe that the object, the thing out here, is the source of our happiness. So when I make the million, when I get the Lamborghini, when I achieve the thing, then I will be happy. And so we work, we work, we work, we work, we work, we work, and we achieve it. You make the money, you get the car, the house, and then when you achieve it, it's like, maybe you feel some happiness for a moment. It's like, wow, that new car. It's like, wow, I'm blissful. And then it's just another car. You get the clothes, the shoes, the handbag, the house, and it's just another handbag. You don't even care, right? And so we experience in the attainment of an object, we experience the fleeting bliss, the fleeting happiness. But it's not real happiness because happiness that comes and happiness that goes is not really true happiness. True happiness is a state of being. And so when we assign objects as the source of our happiness, we attain it, we feel it for a moment, and then it's gone. So now we're constantly on the treadmill of having to seek more objects and another object in order to feel happy. Never comes.
Yes. And
And so what we have to realize, what I help people realize through a process of healing and introspection, is that objects are not the source of your happiness. What happens when we attain an object? This is what happens. When we attain an object, we experience happiness, what we think of as happiness. So we assign the object as the source of that happiness. But it's not really the object that is the source of that happiness. What actually happens when you attain the goal or the object is for a moment, you stopped. You stopped seeking. In that cessation or stopping of seeking was a moment of bliss where you were able to relax and rest into your true nature. So the happiness arose not because of the object, but because you stopped seeking and you relaxed into your true nature. So your true nature is happiness. We're just seeking in the wrong way. And so we keep looking outside. And so many times billionaires have been seeking their whole lives and they're still not happy. And then they're seeking more, and it's just they're exhausted. So by the time they come to me, they want to get to the source of what's really going on. And that's where I help them see something deeper and different.
yes, beautiful. And I usually make a comparison with the drug addicts, and they can
Yes,
take a sniff, but after a while they need two, and after a while they need three.
the same
So
thing.
the same with millionaires, they get the first one and they want more and more. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you are aware of Jerry Powell. He is the one who founded Rhythmia in Costa Rica. He was
Uh,
well known in the movie industry in Hollywood. He had all the women, the
uh,
booze, the cars, the houses. And in his book, he mentions that he was so empty inside that he wanted to buy another car. But that
uh,
car, an additional car, didn't satisfy him, as you said. And then another house. And he was so close to dying. And someone just suggested, go to Costa Rica. I know a shaman there. He might be
uh,
able to fix you. And in a shack, he received ayahuasca. He went
uh.
through that ceremony, and next day he was a changed man. I am not
Mm,
saying that this process will work for everyone, but he was so empty that he was
yes,
very close to dying while being a millionaire.
sure, sure. Yeah, we're looking outside and we look outside and that's why what there's a quote in the Bible that I might get wrong because I'm not a Bible scholar, but it's famous, the kingdom of heaven is within. It's
Yes.
within you. Doesn't say the kingdom of heaven is in your mansion, is in your fame, is in your Lamborghini. It's within you, but most people we don't look within us, and so I think that's where we have to turn to look within us, to do the inner healing, to do the inner work, to clear away the pain, the hurt, whatever's inside, so that we can rest, relax, reconnect with the true source of happiness. You look at a child, you know, children, they're happy for no reason. My son, he's 21 months old, runs around, okay, now he's getting, he wants the thing, doesn't want the thing. But aside from that, for the most part, he's just in a state of happiness. Even when nothing happens, he's just in a state of being happy. And so that's, I think, our natural state until we get conditioned out of it.
Yes, so your son is 20 months old. My younger son is 21 years old. And I tell him there
Mm,
is nothing wrong with wanting to drive and test a Lamborghini, but
nothing.
owning one is going to be a pain and will make you worry all the time. The same with
Ah,
experiencing, going on a yacht. Rent one for a day, go enjoy the day, enjoy with your friends, and then put that, desire aside. You had the experience. You don't need the pain of maintaining one.
Yeah, I would say that again, when you understand that, right, the issue isn't then whether you have it or whether you don't have it. Then your relationship with it shifts because if it has you, then you will suffer. Some people that don't have it always craving it, they still suffer. There are some people that have realized what we're talking about, what you're saying, and they have it, but they really don't care. And so then they're free. I would say it's not about having or not having, it's about your relationship with it, your attachment to it, whether you see these things as defining you, you see these external things as adding more value to you. When you understand that none of that adds to you or takes away from you, then you're free. Free to have it, free to not have it, free to have the Lamborghini, free to not have the Lamborghini. It's just a car. It's beautiful, it's great, enjoy it. It's like have it, don't have it. Either way, it doesn't matter. So I think your relationship with it and the non-attachment is what is key. So, I guess I would make clear to people for myself, I'm not anti-world. I'm not anti Lamborghini. I'm not anti, stuff. It's just a play of consciousness. It's just, none of it's that serious. It's just comes and it goes and enjoy it, but don't hold on to it. Experience it, but don't try to keep it. Experience your experience while you're experiencing it. And if you can have it and not attach to it, then none of it really matters.
Yes.
I think then you're free. I think I mean people are I think some people might take issue with what I'm about to say. But in this small area, okay, uh I find Elon Musk interesting. Other areas, maybe not so much. But someone like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world. It's crazy. 400 billion, like $400 billion. Um, he's someone that as I observe in this one area doesn't seem particularly attached to money.
Mhm.
Like he would, like I observe him, he doesn't seem particularly attached to it. If you look at the risks he takes, and if you look at even some of his crazy behaviors, right? It's not someone that's particularly attached to money. Even before he first blew up to that next level, made money in PayPal, $200 million, risked it all on Solar City and SpaceX and Tesla, everything. I mean, how many of us would risk everything? I don't know. I mean, most of us would like
Yep.
we would keep half, we keep 150, he just 200, boom. So that shows me a high level of non-attachment. Now, other areas, maybe he has issues, right? And so I think our relationship with life and our relationship with relationships and our relationship with stuff is the key. And so I think that there is the possibility as we move into a new era. I think an old era was sort of in the West, it became all about acquisition, material, the importance in the stuff, the house, the car, and this is what defines you. And the person who has the more stuff is the winner. And that became sort of the American dream and the Western world and the way of the ego. You go to the East, tends to be more about living on a mountain in the Himalayas and just pursuing enlightenment, and the world is irrelevant, and the world means nothing, and the world is just a maya, an illusion, which at the deepest level is true. None of it is
Yes.
really real. It's not serious. But I think we're moving into a new era of possibility and way of being where we can merge the divine and the human together, and it doesn't have to be either or anymore, one or the other. It's the and, to be able to be in the world fully and engage in the world fully without attachment to the world. and to use it and to play with it and to use money and to use things, but not get lost to it and not take any of it seriously, realizing it's a movie, it's a play that we are all living in this human experience to experience and then not have it, you know? And so I think uh the new possibility is to be in the world fully, not of the world at all. And I think that's the freedom. So you can enjoy the Lamborghini or the jet, or whatever it is you want, you know, car, a house, shoes, socks, sneakers, doesn't matter. But if you don't have it, it is what it is. You're as free whether you have it or don't. But maybe you prefer those shoes. You just prefer those shoes. But if you don't have those shoes, your peace is not disturbed. I would
Yes.
say, so that's I think the freedom that we are coming into in this sort of new era.
And I think I have a solution for these guys, the multimillionaires and billionaires, to avoid that point where they feel empty and they have to take a drastic movement and step in their life. I was talking earlier today with another guest that they should look at hiring a chief consciousness officer. So people
Uh-huh.
like you and me can be close to them and tell them at one point, you have to stop, you have to look in a different direction, you have to take care of yourself. If you want to donate, these are the right communities and the right associations, indigenous sometimes or children related, that you should donate, not to the big names that will siphon some of this money into big salaries. So if you want to have a meaningful impact in the world, do this and that. So, of course, we have to have a high ethical standard in order to be able to um, be close to these type of personalities.
Yeah.
Kute, what made you step on the spiritual path? It was a conscious decision or a spiritual event or a drastic event in your life?
I would say perhaps it was destiny unfolding itself. And yes, inside of destiny, there were many decisions that I had to make inside of destiny to be able to fulfill my true calling. Because we all might have a certain trajectory or destiny, but that doesn't mean we will all fulfill it. And I think that 90% of people will not fulfill their highest potential in this lifetime because they don't put in the work to do the inner work to step into it. Look, my first memories as I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana, my mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. 18, I came to America. So I'm probably more American now than British or African or Japanese, you know. Um, but as a young boy, my first memories was I remember seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the sand, the gravel that this man walks on and wipes it on her face and stands up. We could call that a miracle, you know, the stuff you read about. But this is pre-internet. And so as a young boy, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear and people stand up out of wheelchairs. And I didn't think anything, I didn't think it was a big deal. It was normal for me. I'm like, okay, wheelchair, stand up, blind seeing, this is just how it is. And I began to realize maybe this was a bit different when I would tell my teachers in school at the age of 8, 9, and 10, and they thought I was a bit crazy. And yet the stuff I was seeing week in, week out. This man whose sand she picked up was my father. And he built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, hundreds of thousands of followers, a huge church in London. To be fair, he was a very spiritual man, very metaphysical, mystical man. Went to India in the 60s, had an awakening, but kept his churches, you know, and sort of refined some of his teachings to help elevate people at the level they were at. And so when I was age 8, my father threw me in front of the audience and said, speak. And that began my career, so to speak. I had no plan, no idea. I was sleeping, and boom, when I stood up on stage, words started coming out of my mouth that I could not explain. And that set me on a journey of trying to understand what was happening to me and some of the experiences I was having. And so when I was 8, I began reading, sneak into my father's office and read all of his spiritual books, everyone from Osho and Krishnamurti and Blavatsky and Theosophists and, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi to Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and, Deepak Chopra's from the Western folks, right? And so I just began to try to understand life and why we're here and where we're going. What is the nature of consciousness? And so that began my life from age 8 to 18. But when I was 14, a significant event happened because at that moment, my father announced to his congregation that I was his successor and going to be taking over. And everybody was happy but me because I just sensed and knew that this was not my path. And when you have that knowing about something inside, but I was too afraid to acknowledge that knowing. I think many of us, we feel something, we know something, maybe it's not right, the marriage, the relationship, the business, the career, the job, and we're too afraid to follow the path. We're too afraid to listen and follow the calling of our soul. And so for 4 years, I wrestled with this knowing. And I tried to make myself fit into a box of what I thought I needed to be and become who I thought the world wanted me to be. And I got miserable in the process. But when I turned 17 and a half, the system in the UK is you go to university at 18 after your A levels. And so I decided I was not going to go to university, which was a radical decision at the time for everyone around me. It's like, what? What are you're going to be a loser for what are you doing? But I felt my soul calling me to come to America. I felt my soul calling me to go to the US. I felt my soul calling me to go to California, to Los Angeles, because this is where all of the self-help authors that I was living happened to be. And I wanted to come and meet these people and learn from these people. And so, sometimes what your soul guides you to do will not make sense to your mind. And what your soul guides you to do will not make sense to your logic. And your mind won't understand why you're guided. But I really believe through my lived experience that when you follow your soul and you're obedient to your soul, you'll always end up in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right people, even though the path that you take may not be the one that you most expect. And so I knew I had to leave. And that's when I mustered up. This is where my life really changed, when I mustered up the courage to have the conversation with my father to say, I love you, but I'm going a different direction. We didn't speak for 2 years, which was rough. Um, and long story short, I ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery that enabled me to come to America at 18 with 2 suitcases, $800 in my pocket, pursuing a dream. And that's when I came and found teachers and mentors as a young kid and studied with some of them. And then I reached the point a few years later when I went through a crisis because the few years I was in the US, I kind of wanted to start a TV show and be like Oprah as well and inspire people, right? Through media, kind of like podcasts are today. Uh, and I tried everything, man. I harassed and tracked down Steven Spielberg in a park. Every studio head, every agent of the big star, I tracked them all down. And then there was one day when I met these managers. They managed Michael Jackson, Mariah Carey, Dolly Parton, Leonardo DiCaprio, Backstreet Boys, J Lo. I mean, the list goes on. Big time managers. And I harassed them, talked my way into their office as a young kid, and I pitched them my concept. And they looked at each other after hundreds of rejections. These two guys looked at each other and they said, "You're going to be huge. We're going to make you a star. Here's a contract. Come back tomorrow." And I went home and I meditated on it. And I came back and something said no. And I didn't understand why. But I knew that when I follow my inner guidance, things tend to take a direction and grace unfolds. And so they said I was crazy. I said no. But that, honestly, I wish I could say I was happy, but that took me into a deep funk because I felt like, wait a second, everything I've ever wanted is being offered to me, but my soul is guiding me in a different direction. It makes no sense. I believe that your true intuition will often not make sense to your mind. Your true intuition will often not make sense to your logic because it's beyond that. It's not arising from your ego or your mind. It's arising from the unconditioned dimension of your being. And I went into a deep depression, and I kind of everything fell apart for me because I threw my hands up and I said to the universe, like, God, I don't know what you want from me anymore because I have tried everything to make things happen and nothing is working. So I give up. I surrender. I let go. And so I said, show me what you want me to do next. And I got this strong nudging intuition that said, go and walk the Camino, 900 kilometers, Camino Santiago in northern Spain.
Yeah.
And then I laughed because I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know I said, show me, but like, do you have anything else instead of that? I don't know if I want to do that. So many times we ask for guidance or we ask for a sign, but we don't want to listen to the sign we're given, which takes us more off course. And long story short, I ended up walking the Camino, which is a whole story, even how I got there because I had no money. But I ended up walking the Camino, which was life changing. And then I ended up in India, which was even more life changing. And it was my time combination, but my time in India that cracked me open to a whole other dimension of life and understanding. And I got a sense of my true purpose. And I came back to the US again, and I felt so free. I felt so free because I had nothing. I had no girlfriend, no money, no apartment, but I felt a sense of happiness that was not dependent on any of those things. And people started coming up wanting to have conversations. Hey, what's going on? Why are you so happy? Why you look different? What? And I started talking to people and kind of giving advice. And then I was like, well, advice is a bit limiting because it doesn't transform people. And slowly I started developing a way of coaching people. And then slowly I developed my own method that was not so much about coaching, it became more about uncoaching and unconditioning people from the patterns that we all develop. Because at the deepest level, we are all free. We just got conditioned in the process of life. And so my work evolved one on one and one on 10 and one on 20 and one on 1,000. And it just started to evolve. And that's a bit of my journey.
Beautiful story. Thank you very much for sharing. And what you said about your roots and your father opens up for me a totally different avenue because I'm familiar with healers and shamans from
Uh-huh.
Africa, from North America. And my question is, have you asked your father if he worked with his ancestors during his healings, or he worked with a different type of energies?
Look, when I uh asked my father, like my father and I, we didn't speak very much because of our differences and issues. But when I turned 21 or 2, after maybe less, but somewhere in there, after being in the US for a few years, I kind of made peace with my father, forgave him for certain things. And then I sat with him one day when I went back, and I asked him, how do you do these healings? We never talk. I just see you do these healings. Like, how do you do it? And I was one thing I was impressed about because he's a very strong man, you know. He said, you know what? I don't heal people. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I just get myself out of the way. It's God that does the healing. I have nothing to do with the healing. And I said, so what happens? He goes, the only thing I do is I don't see sick people. I only see the divine, and I only see the perfection. I only see perfect people. So when people come to me, I see their perfection so clearly. And I just call that perfection out. And my clarity of their perfection is clearer and stronger, and the conviction of that than their conviction of their sickness. And if they're willing to come into agreement, if they're willing to come into the agreement of that, the healing can happen. Because at the deepest level, they are not sick, they're just misperceiving the reality of who and what they are. And I found that very interesting, because even, Jesus, who was a high level mystic, said, it's not I that does the work, but the Father, the consciousness, the Father that does the work through me. And I think when we realize that, it's a code to life, right? So many of us, we're trying to be the ones that are doing everything. We're trying to be the doer, want to be in control of everything, to make everything happen. But the truth is, miracles happen when we can get ourselves out of the way. Miracles unlock when we surrender and get ourselves out of the way. Then the miracles that already are, so we don't make them happen. Miracles are the nature of life. And
Mm.
so when we can get ourselves out of the way, then the miraculous can flow and the miraculous can happen unimpeded because we are out of the way. And so I would say that that's really what he told me. Does he work with his ancestors in the healings? Not particularly. I mean, in African culture, the culture tends to invoke ancestral,
Yeah.
acknowledgement and ancestors as a way of living in the culture. But I would say that my father just saw the perfection and the truth of who someone is and called that forward.
Beautiful. And I hope he found someone who was able to take over the congregation and continue his work.
That's another story.
Good. Once again, thank you very much for sharing this wonderful story. You also wrote a magnificent book, The Magic of Surrender, and you
Yeah.
challenge the traditional idea to that surrender is about weakness or giving up. How
Uh-huh.
can you came about writing this story?
Wow. This was my second book. This was not the book I thought I was going to write. This was not the book I wanted to write. I planned to write every other book than this. I sat down one day with a whiteboard and I thought, let me come up with some brilliant titles, brilliant topics that will be bestsellers and, New York Times and book my publisher would want and book people would want, book my audience would want. I came up with all these intelligent ideas. But when I looked at this whiteboard, none of those ideas really felt inspiring. And none of those ideas felt true and felt authentic, felt real. When I looked at those ideas, the only word that popped out to me on this whiteboard was the word surrender. And I felt the aliveness of that. And I thought, oh man, that's the book. So I had to surrender to the book about surrender that was seeking to be written. And that was when I felt the magic happen. And so I saw that so much about my life began to make sense and why I had gone through what I had gone through, you know. And also, I would say what inspired the book, I didn't know at the time, was in 2017, my mother passed away.
Mm.
And my mother was someone I was the closest person to me. She was the person I loved the most, my dearest friend. And she gave me unconditional love. And she was diagnosed with stomach cancer. I was living in Los Angeles and I flew back and forth from Los Angeles to uh, London, where my mother was living, every month for 12 months. And I'm blessed to have had 12 months with her. But every month I fly there for a week and be with her, fly back and do my work and go there, fly back, boom, bam, back, forth, back, forth. And what started out as the worst year of my life became the best year of my life because I sat with my mother and we would just talk about life. I sat with my mother and we would just reminisce, nothing special, just talking. We would go and take walks and have tea. I never made time to have tea with my mom because I was too busy just trying to make it as a young man in the world. Um, we would just sit in the garden. Never had time to sit in the garden or thought I didn't. And it's interesting. The only regret I have in life is not spending more time with my mother. And so the experience taught me so much in terms of what's important in life, what's really valuable in life. And what was amazing was about a year into the process, we were at the doctor's appointment, and the doctor looked at my mother with sadness and said, "Look, I don't think that you're going to make it. So put your affairs in order because it's not long now. It could be months, could be weeks, but it's not years. That broke my heart open. I couldn't like my mother is no longer going to be. I'll never have another conversation with my mother. My mother will never see my children. My mother will never meet my wife. My mom, it just shattered me. And I cried for the first time in front of my mother, since I was a baby, since I was a child. And I looked my mother in the eyes and I said to her, "Are you afraid?" My mother, a little Japanese woman, she looks at me and she says, "No, I'm not afraid." I said, "How come?" She goes, "Because I know I'm not this body. This body is just a temporary vehicle for my soul. The body will come and the body will go, but my spirit is eternal. So I know who I am, so I'm not afraid." And she meant it. She was just told that she was going to die. And, this wasn't to look good on Instagram. This was real life. And I felt the conviction of her knowing. And I looked my mother in the eyes because I felt like, I could have been a better son, spent more birthdays and Christmases with her. And I said, "Okay, Mom, what do you want before you die? What do you want? Where can I take you? What can I give you?" And my mother looked me in the eyes and she said, "There's nothing that I need. There's nothing that I want. The only thing that I want is what God wants for my life." And in that moment, I felt her peace. In that moment, I felt my mother's freedom. Here she was about to die and not knowing when. And yet she wasn't sad. She wasn't mad. She didn't feel cursed. She was just truly peaceful. I realized that my mother was surrendered. And that's when I saw and I felt, even in the mundane, everyday experience of life, the power of true surrender and what it can do. And I saw that my whole life had been preparing me to write this book. Everything about my mother's life had been preparing me to write this book, is how she lived. And that's when I saw that surrender is in fact the most powerful thing that we can do. In our culture, we have this misconception that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that surrender is giving up, that surrender is waving the white flag, that surrender means you won't manifest your goals, your dreams, or your desires, right? You might get less in life. I'm actually saying no. If you surrender, what if you didn't get less, but you got more? More than you could have planned, and more than you could have imagined, and more than you could have planned with the logic of your limited conscious mind. What if it was better, different but better? And so I think that is the most powerful thing that we can do as human beings. If you look at all of the great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, right, Mandela, on and on, at some point, they all surrendered themselves. They got to they surrendered themselves, and in that surrender, they transcended their human limitations and they tapped into another dimension of infinite potential, and life began to live through them. Life began to manifest and express through them. And this is when the magic started to happen through them and for them beyond their human capacity. And so when we talk about surrender, yes, it is a letting go of control or the illusion that we're in control. When we look at surrender, yes, it is a letting go of who you think you should be and how you think life should be so that you can take the limitations off of life and be truly just open and available to life flowing through you. The old paradigm is all about the ego-based model for living life. What do I want? Go, get it, make it happen, make it happen. What do I want? You might get everything you thought you wanted, only to realize that what you thought you wanted was just what you thought you wanted based on who you thought you were. And you can manifest from the ego, and it might be good, but it will never be truly great. And so to truly surrender is to ask a whole different question. The question becomes, what is it that life is seeking to manifest through me? What is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that life is seeking to create through me? And I think the more we can align ourselves with our soul and surrender to that, then we can bring our marketing and our strategy and our ego to help fulfill the deeper directive of the soul. And so surrender is the deep commitment to follow your soul's inner guidance and live that. And so this is what the magic of surrender is about. We all want more magic in our lives, but we don't want to surrender. It doesn't work that way. Like I want all the magic, but I'm going to surrender this much. The degree of magic we will experience in life is in direct proportion with the degree to which you surrender.
Yes, I
So
agree
yes,
that ego is a big factor into blocking us from surrendering control, because this is pretty much what we are talking about: surrendering control, stepping
mhm.
onto the flow of life, as you said. And do you think that when we surrender, also healing can take place?
Maybe, but not always. That's the thing. It's that, well, if I surrender, then I'm going to be healed. So we surrender to be healed, which maybe healing can happen, but maybe, like in my mother's case, it didn't happen for her. And she was at peace with that. This is true surrender. Like fake surrender is, I will surrender so that healing can happen. I will surrender this relationship so that I can get them back.
With
You know,
expectations. Yeah,
it's a surrender with expectation and attachment to the outcome.
yeah,
I'm going to surrender with some, it's an agreement. True surrender is I know I need to let go. I don't know what's going to happen here, but I know I need to let go because it feels right. And I'm surrendering without any projection of the expectation of the future. I'm just letting go. That's it, because this is what I feel. Then you are completely open and open to the infinite possibilities of the universe. You're not putting any limitation. If I surrender, this might happen. There's no projecting from the past. So could healing happen? Yeah, it's possible if it's your highest destiny.
yeah,
But maybe healing may not happen. Yeah, that's possible too. If that's your highest destiny, and maybe there's things that you're meant to learn, you know. And so for me, surrender is not about trying to make something happen that isn't. It's just letting go and aligning with the highest unfolding for your soul's evolution. And I think that that's the key. So in my mother's case, she completely surrendered. She was surrendered to the highest good, and she completely surrendered, and her time was up. You know, it's like her time was up. It's like if you're in high school, grade 12, you're finished now.
yeah.
But it's like, no, I'm going to stay in the classroom. So now you're 65 in high school. That would be a bit strange. So many of us are living life like we're 65 years old, 70 years old in high school because we're attached to it. There comes a moment where we have to let go. When we were children, we played with toys and childish things. But as we evolve and become adults, we must give up these childish ways. The next level of your life requires the next level of you, which requires that you let go of everything and everyone that is not in alignment. And so often what we do is we hold on to what we know and what is not in alignment out of familiarity, out of comfort, out of safety. And this just blocks your blessing. And so surrender is when you take the limitations off of life. This is the freedom to take it off of life.
Yeah, indeed. Good. Do you have any daily spiritual practice?
Yeah, I meditate, I would say. Um, I meditate, simple. But more and more, what I would say is everything is my spiritual practice now. Everything. Changing my son's diapers is the most spiritual practice more than any damn meditation I've done. You know, learning to be present with my wife, even when she said something that's like, I'm feeling a bit, can I breathe and be patient and exercise patience in that moment when I don't feel like it? That's my spiritual practice. I think that spirituality, at least my perspective, coming from a very spiritual background and seeing a lot of things, going to India 37 times and going to Thailand 40 times and going to Cambodia 4 times. I mean, going to Bali 26 times, you know, For me, more and more, spirituality is not about what you do in your meditation. Spirituality is not about what you do on the yoga mat. Spirituality is not about what you do in the temple. Spirituality is not about what you do in your third eye. Spirituality is not what you do in the other dimension. Spirituality is how you live your life. And I would rather people, and I grew up in the church 3 times a week, man. I was in the church and people would go to church every Sunday, Jesus, 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 and then get out of church, bitch, moan, gossip, and complain and judge other people. It's like, well, what happened to Jesus? And so I grew up in it. I grew up in it. And so these days, for me, spirituality is how do you live your life? How do you treat your neighbor? How do you treat your wife? Can you be kind? Can you be patient? Can you turn the other cheek and instead of retaliating, give back compassion? This is for me real spirituality. And so I would just tell people, hey, I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating here, but I would say, look, hey, stop praying. Start living it.
Yep.
Stop talking about Jesus, and start just loving your neighbor, right? Stop trying to raise your kundalini and just bring positive energy to that person that you don't like. Uh, What's more powerful than that? Because then everything is spiritual. Life is a spiritual process. So if you're practicing that in life, then life becomes your spiritual practice. When I really remember this, but it took me many years to integrate. The first time I went to India, I was a young man, 20, 21 years old. And I remember meeting my mentor at the time. He was kind of like a modern day Gandhi. His name was Dwako G. I met him at the age of 80, maybe 80 years old. And I knew him for about 20 years before he died in the physical. And he was a man of service, wasn't a great guru and a saint, just served people, 2 pairs of clothes, 50 years, built schools, uh, eye camp for the underprivileged kids, just was of service. That was his deal. And I went to his ashram the first time because he had an orphanage of kids that he would take off of the streets, to take care of them and feed them, clothe them, educate them. And huh, I had this idea that I was going to go to India and save the world. I was going to be like Mother Teresa. Some romantic music would play, and I'd be, taking care of these kids, and they would love me. And I was just fulfilling my own ego, to be honest. And I went for a few weeks to this man's ashram where he had 300 orphan children. And after about 10 days, I was so exhausted that I was ready to shoot myself. I was like, I'm getting miserable trying to help people. Wait a second. And his ashram was right by the Bodhi tree in the Mahabodhi temple, right? In Bihar, where the Buddha got enlightened. And so literally his ashram's there. A stone's throw away was the Bodhi tree, the major Mahabodhi temples, like incredible structure. And after about 10 days, I said to Dwalkaji, I'm just, I need a break. I mean, he's been doing this for 50 years, by the way, but I need a break. And I said, I'm going to go to the temple so that I can just meditate a bit, I'm going to go meditate, connect to Buddha and just pray and meditate and just do some spiritual practice. And this man who was so simple looked me in the eyes and he said, look, it's really great that you go and meditate by Buddha statue. Do it. But he said, just make sure that while you're meditating, your heart doesn't turn to stone.
Hmm.
Because right here in front of you, right here, are living Buddhists, living Christ, in the form of these children that are waiting to be loved and waiting to be served. And that statement, it changed my life in that moment. But that statement has stuck with me. And so People ask about my spiritual practices. Yes, I do this and a few things here and there, but spirituality that is not lived is just egoic narcissism.
Yeah.
Spirituality that is not shared. The whole point of spirituality is not to be spiritual. It's like the whole point of taking a shower is not to take the shower. You just stay in the shower the whole point of being spiritual is to be able to get more in touch with your own innate oneness with all things and be loving. The point of spirituality is the fruit is to be loving, to be kind, right? To be generous, to be patient, to live it. And somehow I think in our culture we've gotten a bit caught up with like, oh, let me be spiritual, to be spiritual, to be spiritual. It's like entertainment for the ego. And the sneakiest, kind of going on a tangent, but the sneakiest place that the ego hides is inside of spiritual practice. Because that's where the ego hides. And the ego wants to seek and 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 never find. Because the ego is afraid to find, because in the ego is reinforced through activity. And the sneakiest place is spiritual practice because it's like, oh, spiritual practice. So I'm not saying I don't do some spiritual practice, but I really feel that spirituality must be translated into living and action, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, how you live your life. Because then life becomes a spiritual process. And there is no separation between my meditation and how I live. So then I live more and more and more and more as a meditation. And I live with moment to moment to moment to moment awareness as a meditative practice.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. And those who meditate and have that spiritual practice, as you said, have to translate that into the daily life in terms of how they behave with everyone around them and impact them through that type
Yes.
of behavior, for sure.
Yes. I would say, hey, you want to be spiritual? Tell the truth. You want to be spiritual? Be your word. You want to be spiritual? Do what you say. You want to be spiritual? Show up on time. You want to
Yeah.
be spiritual? Be kind. Because that is, you're living it in action.
Yes. Kude, are there any programs or events or workshops that you like to mention for the audience?
Yeah, look, I would love to connect with anyone that feels inspired. For the last 20 years, I've done seminars and workshops, especially the last 10 intensively around the world, weekend seminars, events, 12-day events in Bali, my retreats. I would just say for now that if you really want to connect more and go deeper, definitely go to my website, kuteblackson.com. Enter your name and your email to receive updates on new events. I'm creating a lot of new and exciting events that are transformative in nature. I just wrapped up a 12-day deep dive in Bali, 2025 and on. I'm in the process right now of creating new seminars, new events that will be accessible to the public. There's online courses that we have. There's a free online course on gratitude that we can drop the link in the show notes where you can access a free online course, 8 video training series on the power of gratitude. There's also another manifestation course that will drop in the show notes that you can access that content as well. If you want to connect more, check out my book, The Magic of Surrender. Instagram, Kute Blackson, my podcast, Soul Talk. But yes, definitely I look forward to seeing anyone at one of my live events soon.
Kude, thank you very much for this fascinating conversation and all the best in everything you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to my viewers, thank you for watching. Share it, leave a comment, and until next time, love and gratitude.